welcome to this class all about doing poetry with your tiny, tiny ones, your toddlers and your preschoolers. It's a really fun age to introduce poetry, and it is never too early. I hear so many people tell me, like, oh, I'm going to do poetry when they get older. But just like anything else in life, if you introduce things to your children when they're younger, they'll be more accustomed to it and they'll be way more, I guess you could say, I don't adapt to it. Just like if you don't use advanced vocabulary with your children when they're younger, then they're not going to use it when they're older. If your children aren't used to reading books when they're younger, they're not going to read books when they're older. If they're not used to exercising, they're not going to exercise when they're older. So poetry is just the same thing as everything else in life. Any good habits start when you're young. So today I'm going to show you some fun different ways that you can introduce poetry or experience it or enjoy it with your little tiny ones as well as with your older ones. You can, of course, bring the older ones along, make it a family thing because then it makes it much more fun. So one thing that is really important about poetry with your little ones is they love repetition. And we all know this. Our children love the same books read over and over again, the same songs read over and over again. If you've made a special song just for your child, of course, they're going to want to hear that over and over and over again. So don't forget, repetition is never a bad thing. These days, we don't spend that much time on memorization of many things since we have our cell phones and stuff with us all the time. And even just like recalling information, like basic information that we did in the past, at least when I was younger, you had to memorize facts in order to be a person who knew things. But now with phones at, never too far away, we don't spend that much time on remembering and memorization. So for little ones, if you start working on those muscle memories, those little brains of theirs when they're younger, you are actually exercising parts of the brain that don't typically get used when you're older. So if they get used to memorizing and stuff, it's going to help build those synapses. And as they get older, memorization isn't going to be a new thing or be considered hard because it'll be something that they've been doing since they were tiny. Okay, so first thing I want to suggest is even when your children are so tiny, like even to the point of bottle feeding or breastfeeding, you could be working on memorizing poetry for yourself. So if you're working on this skill, not only are your children going to hear you saying the poetry out loud, they'll be able to see the facial expressions that you have. You can look into their eyes and recite the poetry to them. And this could be, little nursery rhymes, or it could be you actually working on learning a more difficult poem that you want to memorize over time. Maybe something that you think is a really cool or important poem, like say Kipling's If or something, that you can later on then be saying to your children, and then they in return will have a poem memorized or at least have a special connection to that poem. So don't ever think starting that young even is too early. I remember even my first child, I really wanted him to enjoy books because as a child, my parents did not read to me that much, if at all. I mean, I can count how many books, like children's books we had, probably on a few hands. And so even when I was breastfeeding him, I was reading board books to him over and over and over again. And that led to him loving books. So then even once he got older, where he wasn't breastfeeding as long or feeding and then falling straight back to sleep, then he'd sit up and I would read the books to him. So it just became a habit. Hey, so the next tip I have for you is hand motions. Adding hand motions to poems is so exciting for little ones. They love being able to connect the movement to the words, and it's just something that they totally enjoy. So I'm going to share with you a couple poems that you can add hand motions to. Now, one is one that I've been doing hand motions to for a while, and then the others I'm going to kind of almost make up on the spot. I looked at them over them a little bit, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to just come up with motions. Okay. So the first one is Lodged by Robert Frost. It's in my book, A Year of Poetry Tea Time. Okay. So this is a cute little poem that when they're tiny, tiny, tiny would just be fun to learn the hand motions. And then as they get older, they can start understanding possibly the deeper meaning of the poem. Okay. So the poem goes like this. It says, the rain to the wind said, you push and I'll pelt. They so smote the garden bed, the flowers actually knelt and lay lodged, though not dead. I know how the flowers felt. Okay. Cute, short little poem. Okay. So here are the hand motions that I've been doing for a while for this one. Okay. Okay. So the rain to the wind said, so rain, rain to the wind said, you push and I'll pelt. Okay. Let's try that one more time. Ready? The rain to the wind said, you push and I'll pelt. Okay. Kids love dramatic hand motions. Okay. Then they so smote the garden bed. Okay. So on the word smote, you're going to clap. Okay. They so smote the garden bed. Okay. Again, nice, dramatic, loud sounds, right? And then going to quiet. Okay. Contrast is awesome. Okay. That the flowers, so this is like a sign for flowers, so the flowers actually knelt. Okay. Pulled down. Okay. Then, and lay lodged, no, though not dead. I know how the flowers felt. Okay. And lay lodged, just a little sleepy, and lay lodged. And then she get, though not dead. I know how the flowers felt. Okay. Super simple. Okay. So I'm going to try to go through it one more time. Ready? The rain to the wind said, you push and I'll pelt. They so smote the garden bed that the flowers actually knelt and lay lodged, though not dead. I know how the flowers felt. Okay. And something as simple as that. You could use this, at a mealtime. You could use it before you read or after you do reading. You could use it at bedtime. Anything like that. Little things. Or maybe while you're waiting in the car. If you're a family that goes through the drive-through a lot, say every time we go to McDonald's, we're going to do our poem. Okay. So that is one cute little poem that you can put hand motions to. Okay. Another one, which is another Robert Frost, also in the yellow Year Poetry Tea Time book. This one is on page 56. So this one I just barely looked at. Okay. So I just want to show you how simple it is to come up with hand motions. Trying to get my book to stay open without doing something to the computer here. Use my handy phone here. Okay, so this one's called A Minor Bird. Okay. So it says, I have wished a bird would fly away and not sing by my house all day, have clapped my hands at him from the door when it seemed as if I could bear no more. The fault must partly have been mine. The bird was not to blame for his key, and of course there must be something wrong in wanting to silence any song. Okay, so what you want to do when you're making up hand motions is just look for obvious things that you could put, meaning to with your hands. So the word bird, you could either use a sign language for bird or you could just go like this. Okay. So I have wished a bird would fly away and not sing at my house all day. Okay. So you just make a little roof for a house. Have clapped my hands at him from the door when it seemed as if I could bear no more. The fault must partially have been in me. Okay. The bird was not to blame for his key. And of course, there must be something wrong in wanting to silence any song. Okay. So there's like a very simple example. Okay. So I'll just go through it one more time. Ready? I have wished a bird would fly away and not sing at my house all day. Have clapped my hands at him from the door when it seemed as if I could bear no more. The fault must have partially have been in me. The bird was not to blame for his key. And of course, there must have been something wrong and wanting to silence any song. Okay, so there you go. Super duper simple. Just like make it up. So if there's like a poem you run across that's cute and short and you're like, oh, I love this, then take advantage of it. Use that poem to make up some hand motions to. Because every poem, I always say this, poems are personal. So if there's something special that you find in a poem, then use it. Don't like wait. Okay, so here's another little one. It's a nursery rhyme, and I believe it's considered a Mother Goose nursery rhyme. It's called Hush Baby My Dolly. And so this one is in my book poetry. Why does it do that? Poetry in Winter. I don't know why it's not focusing on it. Anyways, poetry in winter. So it says, hush, baby, my dolly, I pray you don't cry, and I'll give you some bread and some milk by and by, or perhaps you like custard or maybe a tart. Then to either you're welcome with all my heart. Okay, so now here's another cute one, almost kind of like a patty cake, right? Patty cake's one that we all know. Another great one to do with your kids. Okay, so you can go, hush, baby, my dolly, I pray you don't cry. I'll give you some bread and some milk by and by. Or perhaps you like custard or maybe a tart. Then either you're welcome with all of my heart. And of course, you can do heart like this, or you can try, everybody loves doing this now. So you can always do that. Okay, so that's just another example of something super, super simple. Now, another thing, children are super wiggly. They love using their entire bodies. So don't forget some of the classic ones, which at least now I'm getting older, so maybe they're not as classic anymore. But for instance, London Bridge, right? I'm assuming maybe not. There's a song that goes, London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Take the keys and lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. Take the keys and lock her up, my fair lady. Okay, super simple little thing. But if you add the body motions to it, it's super, super fun. So what you do is you have two people standing across from each other and they put their hands like this. So it's creating like a big opening underneath. And then the little tiny ones just run in circles, like go under the bridge and run around and go under the bridge and keep going, 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 going. And then if you have more than one child, when it says take the keys and lock her up, you drop your arms down and then you bounce the child back and forth between the arms. And of course, if your kids learn this, they could even do it on their own with each other. And it's a whole lot of fun. Like my brothers and I, we did this so often as a child. So London Bridge is a really fun one to get wiggles out. Another one is Teddy Bear, Teddy Bear. So this also has been used as a jump roping song. And it quite literally tells you what to do. Okay. So it's teddy bear, turn around. Okay. So you turn around. If you really want to get wiggles out, have them jump up and down the entire time. Teddy bear, turn around. Teddy bear, touch the ground. Teddy bear, reach up high. Teddy bear, touch the sky. Teddy bear, bend down low. Teddy bear, touch your toe. Teddy bear, go to bed. Teddy bear, rest in bed. Oh, sorry, rest your head. Teddy bear, turn out the lights. Of course, we love a clap. And teddy bear, say good night. Okay. So there is another one. There's a couple different versions. That's the one that I grew up with. And we would actually do that with jumping rope. But of course, you don't have to do it with jumping rope. You could do it without the rope. Another cute one that I just realized, I've heard, Two Little Dickie Birds. This is another hand motion one. So it's super, super simple. All you do is you use your little fingers. And this is a really good one when you have itty bitty bitty ones because when they're still realizing that something is there, even though they can't see it. So you're going to hide your fingers. So it just says, two little dicky birds sitting on a wall. One named Peter and one named Paul. Fly away, Peter. Hide it behind your back. Fly away, Paul. Come back, Peter, and come back, Paul. That's all it is. But they love it because they love the hiding and then they reappear. So this is a really fun one. I mean, I've done this with preschoolers. I've done this, taught this poem to kindergartners, to little teeny kids. So it doesn't have to only be used for like babies who are still learning object permanence, but it's a great little cute short poem that you can add hand motions to. Let's see here. Okay. So another great time to introduce poetry to your little ones is like nap time. Nap time is great because they are, sometimes some children are great. You lay them in their bed and they just go to sleep. But then there are those who just don't want to give up their mommy time. So poetry is a great time to lay them down for their nap. And maybe you have one or two poems that you're just going to recite to them. Or maybe you're going to have a book of poetry that you're going to try to read a couple poems out of. So, of course, I've come up with, this book has lots of different poems in it. And if you want something based on a season, we have poetry in winter, which I've got poetry in spring coming out really soon. But if you're looking even just for something like poems that you may have heard when you were a kid, okay, Mother Goose is awesome. And if you can find one with great pictures in it, like this one has nice bright colored pictures in it. So it has tons of Mother Goose rhymes. Like Mother Goose is a perfect go-to when you have itty bitty bitties. And then, of course, we've got Robert Louis Stevenson's A Child's Garden of Verses, which I love his poetry. And this one's really simple. It has very simple little pictures in it. And I have so many different versions of his books because I love beautiful art. Finding books with beautiful art in it is another great way to capture your children's, attention, because then they have great pictures to look at when you're reading the poems. So having some great collections of poetry is awesome. There's I personally like classic poetry because it also introduces the children to a little more difficult vocabulary. But of course, there are, silly ones, like Shel Silverstein stuff. But those typically are longer, more complicated poems that your little tiny children aren't going to enjoy as much as the short ones that they can repeat over and over again. So I highly recommend you like Mother Goose or Robert Louis Stevenson's poetry because they are great for children. Mary Mapes Dodge, she's another one that has lots of great children's poetry. Trying to think, I know there's more, but of course, A Year of Poetry Tea Time, that one I've gone through and I've vetted a lot of poetry. I do plan on eventually doing a book just for toddlers and preschoolers. So it's poetry you can read to your tiny, tiny kids with lots of short poems. Hopefully that won't be too far in the future. Um, so yes, nap time, squeezing in a poem, like I said before reading time or in the morning at breakfast. You can find little short poems that can relate to so many things. So you can even connect poetry. So if you run across a poem like Georgie Porgy put in pie, kissed a girl and made him cry. You could say like, oh, I'm gonna say that poem when we have, a meal or maybe about, Tom Thumb putting his thumb and pulling out a plum. That's a great one. So you can take poems that connect to things and use those poems during those times. I love just peppering learning and exposure to things throughout the day just because then it becomes kind of more natural and it doesn't feel as forced. And it's not like, let's go sit down right now and read poetry, especially when they're itty bitty, right? they're busybodies. Maybe you run across a really cute poem that's about blocks, and you love playing blocks. So when you're playing blocks with your kids, you can try memorizing it yourself, and in turn, they will be hearing those words and stuff, and they will be absorbing that, even if they're nonverbal yet, right? They could be only 1 year old and still be hearing you say these poems. So I hope you found some value in the tips that I gave you and the resources. If you're interested in buying a copy of A Year of Poetry Tea Time, you can find it both on Amazon and on my website at ayearofpoetryteatime.com. And of course, right now is our poetry contest. So if you are a budding poet, or when your children love poetry, or you want to challenge them as a homeschooler to try something new, definitely check out ayearofpoetryteatime.com. Go to the poetry contest page. There's a whole page just with ideas. The contest page, if you scroll down, it gives you all of the rules and everything that you need to know in order to enter the contest. And each person can enter up to 3 poems. You have also, there's an elementary, middle school, high school, and adult category. So even homeschooling parents can participate in the poetry contest, and it is worldwide. That is why it's the International Homeschooling Poetry Contest. This is our 6th year. I've had people from all over the world checking it out. We already have entries from New Zealand, and I know we always get entries from Australia. So I'm looking forward to reading all these poems. So make sure to go check that out. This contest is an annual one that happens in March. So if you're seeing this after 2025, then be looking forward to the contest happening in future years. So other than that, I think that's everything. If you want to know more about these free workshops, make sure you visit a Facebook group. It's called A Year of Poetry Tea Time group. And you can ask to join, and then you'll find all the information and the replays of our workshops that we've had so far. So super excited to read your poems, and thank you so much for coming. Join the Tea with the Poet Club at ayearofpoetryteatime.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell for more videos like this.